Good evening. I'll call the meeting of the Calvert County Police Accountability Board to order. It is now 6:30 on November 29th, 2023. We do have a quorum. And to let you know, this meeting is being recorded. So you have in front of you the agenda for tonight. If you don't have any changes, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the agenda for our meeting. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we're moving right along. Give you an update from the chair. We were invited to participate in a regional, put that up on the screen so you have it, regional PAB chair summit. So it was a meeting where Calvert County and 7 other counties, Anne Arundel, Baltimore County, Howard, Montgomery, Prince George's, Hartford, one more. But we were just, it was an informal meeting. We just met to talk about, we talked about where we were with implementing the PAB-ACC and what challenges we have encountered so far and how they were doing certain things. So it was interesting to find out how some of the counties were handling certain processes. One of the things that came up, I was surprised that, if you recall, we requested a ruling from the Attorney General regarding the misconduct definition. And we received that, I think, back in April of this year. A lot of the counties that were there were not even aware of it. So they requested copies and they received copies of it. So they're all making progress. Baltimore City is a little bit behind. They're making really good progress. They had over 800 cases, and they're about halfway through, Liz? Yes. So and it was a good meeting. Nothing official comes out of that meeting. They talked about what approach do we want to take in terms of legislation. And my position on legislation was you don't want to open that can of worms unless you're really serious about it. If you open this up in a legislative session, you can't guarantee what you're going to get out of it. So, but there was some discussion around the subpoena power of the PABs, and so that PABs and ACC, but nothing official there. So a lot of things we talked about, but I don't want to even get it recorded as part of this meeting until we get some traction there. The other is the second item, the police accountability outreach. The chair, Scott Deacon of the ACC, and I have gone out to meet with, we had 2 since we last met. We met with the NAACP in September, right here in this room, and we also met with the Fraternal Order of Police, FOP, in October. I would say both those meetings were really good meetings, and we continue to get the word out regarding the whole police accountability initiative in Calvert County and in all the counties around the state. There was a suggestion that we partner with the library, the Calvert County Library, to have the next outreach meeting there and just see if there's any interest in the public just to come in and participate in that presentation. So we're making some progress there, but we don't have anything nailed down at this point. The Administrative Charging Committee, we now have a vacancy on that committee. And it's being advertised. I think it's a running advertisement, right? So it's not, it doesn't close.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any candidates?
No, not this time.
No candidates. So, oh well, Scott.
What are the requirements for that?
The requirements for the ACC is, there aren't any requirements like you have for the PAB. The ACC, you apply, and I don't have the announcement in front of me, but I don't recall any specific requirements for a member, for anyone to,
You would need to be from District 3, that's what we're looking to replace a member from District 3.
That's right, yeah.
And then the same requirements to meet the PAB, just as far as, felonies, and anything that you would normally, be eligible to serve on a board within the county.
Okay, it's not like the trial board where it has requirements like legal background or, I
No.
thought there was requirements for one of them. I just was wondering if it was.
No.
I don't recall. You, Scott? No. Okay. So anyone interested in applying, they do meet monthly. There is a training, a one-week training that's required before you can participate as a member on the board after you're appointed. And the reason why this appointment, the vacancy, the candidate that was there before was appointed by the commissioners. So that's why it's going back to the commissioners. We appoint 2 members, but our 2 members are still there, so that's why so that's an FYI. There's a vacancy there, and if we fill the position, let's say in the next 30 days, I don't think the next training is available until March.
Spring.
So even if you're appointed, it's gonna be a while before you can actually participate in the meetings. The training is a very critical piece of it, and it's a requirement from the state. Okay? Any questions on any of the updates? Okay. Then we have the complaint report. For the complaint report, if you compare what we have so far this year with last year, we have significantly less complaints than we had this time last year. So we're actually looking at almost 11 months, and we have a total of 28. Let's see, the ACC has looked at 19 of them. We currently have 3 that we will be looking at in 2 weeks. And so there's a big difference in what we had. I think last year we had a total of like 59 or 58 or something like that. So we're about just a little bit, about half of where we were last year. I think we made a lot of progress in terms of getting the process in place, ensuring that the process is working. Work closely with the sheriff's office to ensure that if there are any questions or issues that we're able to work through those. So let's see. And that's just another view of that. So we have with us the state police and the sheriff's office. So
As the state police are coming up, I just want to let you know that Mr. Jones is joining us by Zoom. He has been given the privilege to be able to unmute himself. So, Mr. Jones, if you have questions, please speak up.
okay, do we,
Thank you. Is that good? Thank you. Mr. Jones on the board, right? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
right. Is that I didn't realize that Zoom was an option for this meeting.
We have 2 members of the public joining us by Zoom currently, and it is published on the header of the agenda.
Okay, got it. All right,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Perrin. I appreciate
How
all
are
of
ya?
having me here again. So we'll jump right into it. Thus far this year, we've had a total of 7 citizen complaints. And if you have the slide, are you flipping through them?
Wilson, can you
Oh,
go
sorry.
to the next slide?
I'm supposed to be working this, okay.
So we've had a total of 7 citizen complaints so far this year. You can see the majority of them We have two that are currently open and currently being investigated. Of those that the investigations have been completed, with them all being eligible for ACC review, two of them have not yet been reviewed by the ACC, and a majority of the cases overall, as you can see, 43% were determined to be unfounded. Versus the internal complaints which we initiate based upon what we see ourselves as members of the Maryland State Police. We've had a total of 6 of those. 4 of them have been ACC eligible to be reviewed, and 3 have not yet been reviewed by the ACC. And you can see the difference in the findings in the citizen versus internal complaints, where 83% of the complaints we bring forth from in-house are sustained. And I just gave a brief listing underneath of there of each case that are enumerated above.
That's helpful.
With the actual case number, the date of occurrence, the allegation, and then the finding.
Okay.
Next slide. And so outside of complaints, we track a host of other incidents that are reviewed in a detailed fashion, and that sometimes do lead to complaints themselves or subject of. And I'd like to just highlight, we've had 12 use of force cases so far this year. All of them have been reviewed and been found to be justified in conformance with policy. For show of forces, we've had 3 this year, and again, they were all justified and conformed with policy. We've had 5 vehicle pursuits. They were all justified and conformed with policy. And we've had 9 departmental accidents, so accidents involving troopers. 7 were deemed to be non-preventable, and 2 were found to be preventable, which means the employee could have done something to prevent it. And discipline was levied in both of those cases.
So just for clarification, those are not really complaints from anyone? It's
No,
just your
these are-
summary of
these are-
incidents?
These are not complaints. These are just
Okay.
summaries of other incidents that are, of concern to many.
Great, thank you.
And then the final slide, with a relatively low number of complaints, just like I did last time, I'm presenting to you the number of police incidents that we've handled so far this year, to really bring home the point that we've had a lot of citizen contacts, many adversarial contacts with the citizens of Calvert County so far this year, and specifically 22,000 calls for service, 14,000 traffic stops, 104 DUI arrests. We've seized 19 guns in the hands of those who should not have them, and we've made many criminal arrests and handled many criminal investigations. And so despite all of these tens of thousands of contacts and interactions we've had, it's a relatively low number of complaints.
Okay.
And so that concludes the information I have to present. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions?
I have one
Lieutenant
question.
Mears?
Internal complaints. 2 false reports. Is that by the same officer?
It is by the same officer, and that officer was terminated several months ago during the third quarter.
Do these statistics include the Criminal Investigation Bureau or that separate entity, the Southern Region? or whatever
That's a
it
very
is?
good question, and no, it does not. These are inclusive only of those troopers and personnel specifically assigned to the Prince Frederick Bureau.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none.
right.
Lieutenant, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate you
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Hope everybody has a great holiday season.
You too.
Be safe out there.
Okay. You have any comments, Sheriff?
Good evening, everyone. How you doing?
Good.
Hope everybody enjoyed time with family and friends. And Thanksgiving is actually pretty quiet on our end as far as our office goes. And I just would like to report that that CALEA process is going very well. We already get that ball rolling, which I'm kind of excited about. That process, it looks like it's 3 years. to get that fully certified, but we're gonna try to get it done in 2 years.
Okay.
We already have somebody on staff, which we funded without funding there. And because I think it's just important to have that in our office as you guys feel the need for it too as well. So I'm very happy to get that ball rolling and started. So we've had good feedback from other departments we've reached out to that that's already CLIA certified. And I think the La Plata chief, we've talked to him and on board with him. He's one of the commandants, as they call it, CLIA. So
Oh, okay.
it's good to have him in our backyard too as well. So very supportive group.
So you've had interaction with Khalil already, or is that
Yes, we have.
coming up?
They're already in contact them. We already got the personnel in place that's going to handle that. The CLIA manager, Lieutenant Buckmaster, that just retired, so he's already familiar with that system, which we had in the past. He's going to be managing that, so I'm looking
Great.
forward to it.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Good. Okay, any questions?
Sheriff, on that particular matter, what specifically do you think, what specific efforts are being taken to reduce that time from the 3-year period that's standard to the 2 years that, the goal that you're trying to meet in 2 years? Are there any particular things that you guys envision that CLIA manager being able to do to shorten that time frame?
Yeah, since we were already, we're not taking this from the ground up. We were already CLIA certified. We have a lot of the standards already put in place that's already there. So that's where we're kind of cutting the gap there too as well at the time, because we already have a lot of that put in place, and also too having that CLIA manager doing it full time rather than taking a captain or the major from his other duties and trying to make that CLIA that process go along. Which is why they put the 3-year tag on it. So me thinking that we have a full-time manager, we're already CLIA certified. There's no reason why we should get done in that timely manner. So
Yes, sir. Thank you.
yeah, it's being standardized with everybody else, and having that'll even make us bigger and stronger as far as setting the bar. So
Yeah. Great. Any other comments or questions? We have the year-end report. I don't know whether you're planning on leaving now or you're gonna sit through the rest of it.
I can if you need me to.
Yeah, if you could.
I'm yours for the evening.
Okay, if you could just sit through it, because I want you to look at the year-end report, and there's another question regarding the complaint process.
Okay.
that-
Come back to this.
Yes, yes, thank you.
You should stay here.
Thank you very much. The next is the presentation of the end-of-year report. As you know, we are required at the end of December of each year to present a report to the county commissioners in terms of what we've done over the last year, what processes have we recommend enhancing to the law enforcement agencies. And we will be presenting this, we're trying to get it scheduled, I think, in 3rd or 4th Tuesday in January. So I want to quickly go through it and see if you have any questions or comments around it. There was one comment that came up in that summit that we had, and there was a suggestion that we submit these reports to the state, and I said, no, we're not gonna do that. That's not the requirement of the law, so why should we do that? If what are we fixing by doing that? So if they want it to come up, they can bring it up, but I'm not gonna voluntarily just send the report up when the requirement is to have it to the commissioners. Okay. Go back the other way. So this is the report that I will be presenting to the county commissioners. Purpose of it is that we do this every year, at the end of every year. This slide shows the members that we have. We have 3 members, board members that were reappointed. So I think we have probably 3 more coming up in 2024. But just to show the commissioners who's on the board. I included in here the complaint process. I think it's as a refresher for them, so they can see, and this one has the regulations on it, which I think it's a modified Calvert County one that includes the one they use at the state. So this is just to refresh the commissioner's memory in terms of what the PAB is responsible for. And so we have that in there, and then we talk about the responsibilities of the PAB. This would probably go relatively fast because this is the second year doing this, and they shouldn't be a lot of questions around that. And then we talk about the ACC, who's on the ACC, showing that we do have a vacant position at this time, responsibilities of the ACC. And I think, Scott, you were at the table last time. You'll be at the table this time. And Sheriff, you're also invited to be at the table when we present this to the commissioners. Trial board, we have not used the trial board here in Calvert County. Hope I'm not saying that, and next week we have one, but doesn't look like we have used that yet. So just talk about, we had one person that we appointed to that board, and she's been trained, but I don't think there's been a need for trial board. The trial board responsibilities, I'll go over the trial board responsibilities with the board. Working together toward improvements. We work with the local law enforcement to build trust and create internal and external processes. The ACC diligently review all our backlog cases, and we're in sync right now. We only have 3 cases pending. Actually, one really case pending. We've talked about the other 2. So we are up to date and current. We don't have a backlog or anything like that. We sought opportunities to clarify the statutory definition of police misconduct, and that has helped a lot to get that in place so that we know whether a complaint we can actually do the investigation on. So that was clarified in April of this year. So the number of complaints here, I'll be going over that in terms of, we show the ones for the year, and we also show the 2022, the half year, so they can see all of that. Policy recommendations to improve policing. And I talk about how do we get to that point where we do have recommendations, and that is working with the ACC and where they're recommending opportunities to enhance a policy or make a change or put in a process. That's how it gets back to us, and we, in our quarterly meeting with the sheriff, go over any recommendations that we have. So, and then I go through the recommendations that we have made. February 22nd, first time we made recommendations, and so the sheriff you'll be at the table, Sheriff Cox. So I'll just highlight these. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it unless you want to make some comments as we go through of what you guys have done, because you've done a lot to support these recommendations.
Yeah, it's been a long first year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot done, so
Yeah.
I'm proud of my staff and actually you guys too as well, working with us.
Thank you. So we had February recommendations, we have recommendations in May. We also had a couple of recommendations in August. And we have it down on the agenda for today to talk about some additional recommendations that we may have or will be discussing potentially. So the recommendations from this slide is blank because we're going to talk about any recommendations that we may have from this meeting. Memorandum of understanding, just to give the board an update that we worked together with the sheriff's office, and we've come up with a document that we agreed to, and it's in and it's working. The community outreach is the piece that Chairman Scott Deegan and I, we go out and we offer to go out and talk to folks. We've done 3 so far. I feel that they've been really helpful. When we met with the FOP, I think they had a better understanding as to what we do and what we're responsible for as PAB and ACC. I thought it was a really good meeting we had with the FOP also. Achievements, when you look at what we've done, we are still called for how you do this or support from around the state, from other PABs. I think we were the smallest county at that summit meeting that they had. So it was good to get out there and we also talked about having a annual kind of meeting with PABs and maybe ACC members just to go off-site somewhere and maybe a part of Mako and discuss any issues that we may have. Okay, we had the 3 members we appointed. The chair of the PAB participated, the Mako piece, I've talked about that. And that summit. Goals for 2024. Talk about those goals. Acknowledgements, this is just to thank everybody for working with us throughout the year. This is the county staff, how they work with us to make it all come together. It's a smooth process, and we are prepared every time we have an opportunity to go out there and spread the word. And I can get more information if anybody wants more information, and that's pretty much any questions that the commissioners may have. So it's pretty straightforward. We don't have any challenges that we are dealing with, so we don't have to bring up all of that because we don't have any. So any comments on it, anything we should add in, take out? Okay. And when we get it scheduled, we'll let you know because it happens before our next meeting. And you're welcome to come in. I think Susan was the only one there last time. Bring some friends, Susan.
Call a friend.
So no questions or comments on it? Then we'll go into the policy recommendations for the day. And the first one, citizen complaint withdrawal procedures. Captain Parrott sent us over, I think it's a draft, is he calling it a draft? Of changes to the policy to include that. We looked at it in the leadership meeting today, and we're not gonna make any recommendation here yet, because I think looking at the draft, there's an opportunity for, maybe it's the same members on this board that sat down and went through the MOU, just to give you some feedback on it and how they feel it should fit in. So if you're okay with that, I'd like to have those members meet with Captain Parrott or anyone else who from the sheriff's side who want to be there, just to clarify exactly what in those words. There are some questions that I had about the draft, but because it's a draft, I'm not gonna bring it up right now. But I think it's an opportunity for, how many members we had on it? Suzanne, you were
I
on it.
wasn't on
It
that
was,
one.
it
I
was
was on
Dawn,
Dawn,
State's
yeah,
attorney
Dawn
one.
was on it.
Dawn, Leslie, and,
Okay, Leslie, Dawn, and Suzanne.
yeah.
Okay, so if they'll work and see if we can get some clarification on it.
I have a question
Sure.
about under what circumstances would somebody need to withdraw their complaint?
I think,
Just that, they change their mind, or?
Yeah, it happens, but actually, quite frank, I mean, doing the job for over 20 years, you do have somebody that wants to make a complaint. You give them the whole process on how it works, and then for some reason, they sleep on it and they withdraw it.
Okay.
Me as the sheriff, I want some way to track that.
Okay.
And we're not doing that. I think this enhances the process for not only us, but every citizen here that lives here. So what my idea of that is it's searchable. So if a citizen that keeps complaining and then withdraws it and continues to do that, there was really no follow-up there. So
Okay.
me as the sheriff, if this person does have an issue, we can send further investigation out. We can send OPS out there, or we can send an investigator out there to see what's really going on, as far as maybe that person may be intimidated by somebody why they keep withdrawing. But if it's not documented, I don't know about it, so I can't fix it. So this is what this
Right.
whole process is doing,
Yeah.
and making it easier for the citizen and trackable, not only withdrawing. Some citizens call and say they would like the supervisor to talk to them. That's a
Okay.
checkbox there, and it's documented and shareable. And I wanted to be transparent with you guys and actually see what we're putting in policy with our complaint process, because I think you guys need to hear it too as well.
Yeah.
And we get feedback from you guys, and I think it makes it better as a whole. And that's my goal here. And that's not really anything crazy, but me as the sheriff, I want to see and one, to be able to track it, and two, to be able to track patterns. And if we see a pattern where we need to fix, behavior, then I need to fix it. So I think
that's
this,
a great idea.
and if you guys have a question about it too, a complainant, they may reach out to you guys or the board. We can search that too as well, right in our system.
Right, and then you have documentation that
Correct.
they,
And it speaks volume to see if all of our cases were investigated by us, that,
Right.
the whole board, the ACC, agrees on our findings. I think that's what this board is in place for.
right?
And I give it to my staff too, and me as being the sheriff, and if a complaint, I take them serious. And we investigate them thoroughly, and I think they do it professionally too as well. And me as the sheriff coming on my first year, me changing culture and professionalism, I think we're doing a great job at that, so.
I think the complaints reflect that.
Right, and then
Good job.
you guys, we have the boards out there in the state that really need it, that have 800 complaints that are just sitting there. I think that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And I think you guys do a great job with that, so.
Yeah, I think there's another piece of that. With the Police Accountability Board and the ACC Administrative Charging Committee in place, when there is a complaint that comes in, we track that complaint. So if it's withdrawn, we did not have a formal way to do that so that we can show that it opened and closed. So
Okay, so it
we're
helps with
trying
the
to put a
procedure.
process in place where we know what happened to every complaint that came in. If the,
I got it.
and if we were hit there with, I think, 3 or 4 withdrawals. So my radar went off to say, well, if they were withdrawing, and for the cases coming to the ACC today, I would say about 90% of them, there is an interaction with the complainant and Captain Parrott's staff. So and most of them that we've reviewed have been recorded. So if we record that, then we got a record. If someone comes back to us or comes back to you and say, I submitted my complaint, and they may have decided to withdraw it, but now I changed my mind, or I don't know what happened to it. So we're making sure that we close the loop on that.
And
So I
Captain
think-
Bear created a form, right? So he created a form that we would give to the claimant for them to sign, saying they're requesting withdrawal of the claim.
Yeah.
So it's documented. 'Cause we had one recently where a lady, we informed her a couple of details of what she thought happened, and then we informed her of what really happened, and it made sense to her, and she sent a nice email saying, hey, appreciate this, I no longer want to go through with any of this, I'd like to
Okay.
withdraw it, and it was an email, which was
Yeah.
good, we put it in the file, but it kind of sent the light off saying we should probably have a form for me to sign.
Okay.
And the other piece is to record audio, video recording of the complaint. And the reason that's there, both these things are linked. The reason that's there is that we would have a recorded or documented record that took place, and we will also have the conversation that led up to the decision on that recording.
And going back to the tracking part of it, I've came up through the ranks, working patrol too, as a citizen comes up, wants to make a complaint on a deputy, and it's handled by a supervisor, bless you. It's never tracked. This way it's tracked there.
Right.
So if we do get a lot of those and it's not being reported by the supervisor, it has to be now.
Yeah.
So, if we need to look into it further, we have to. And the mediation, it works very well too. We just had a case that the citizen wanted mediation with a deputy, and it was just closed out, successful, so. And the case you guys are hearing now, the ACC, I mean, that was on the border of not being a complaint, but I want you guys to hear it because we're on the same page here. So, I mean, that's what we're here for, that's what the board's here for, and I told you from day one about transparency, so.
Yeah. Any comments or questions?
Sheriff, is there any consideration on including on the form the reason for the withdrawal?
There is, that's
There is,
track two is also, it's actually a spot two where it would be feedback. So that gives me feedback on how that was handled.
Excellent.
And Captain Parrott, I know he takes his job very seriously, and he's done a really good job with this, of my recommendations and him putting that in there, so.
On your citizen feedback form here, you have the withdrawal form's on a different form. I don't think you actually have a copy of that one. So you do that, okay.
That's why I didn't see it on there, but I see the
Yeah, one of the questions that I,
Just wanted to make it a little more clear.
one of the questions that I want to make sure the three members, as they engage with discussion on this, is, the draft calls it feedback. It's actually a complaint. I mean, I think it's different. Feedback and complaint, two different things. If a citizen comes in and complains, and then we're talking feedback, that's different because it appears that the complaint went away. So we just want to make sure that,
Yep, so that's actually kind of the purpose of why we created this form.
yeah,
One of the feedback types is a formal complaint. One of the
Okay.
feedback types is a formal complaint with mediation, and one of the feedback types is not a formal complaint, it's supervisor review and meet with the deputy. Because like right now, there's a lot of, not a lot, but there's ambiguity on the side of when the supervisor is speaking with the citizen, they'll say, yeah, I would like to make a complaint, and then they describe it, and we describe to them what's going on, they say, well, I don't wanna do that. So then do you wanna we always say, do you wanna make a complaint? Then they might say yes, they might say no. But depending on what they say and what the circumstances are, it kinda leaves the supervisor to say, well, is this a complaint or not? So we're trying to spell it out a little bit for them. The citizen knows exactly what they're looking to do. And if it's not a complaint, if they're saying it's just a review, I don't want to file a complaint, I just want someone to be aware, address it with the deputy. I'm not making a complaint. We're putting that on the citizen to say, this was their request. They've told us they don't want to make a complaint. They sign right here that they just want us to meet with the deputy. And they don't want to go through that process. They just want someone to be aware of it.
And we always give some feedback too, as well as, on the site at the county for the PAB, ACC, you can make a complaint there too as well, and that goes straight through the board.
And that feedback is still documented, like the sheriff said, it's documented as a citizen feedback.
right.
Where if we get 3 citizen feedbacks on someone, we might say, hey, wait a minute, why are we getting this much feedback on the person? But they certainly have an option to make it a formal complaint, as the form states.
John?
Mr. Jones has his hand raised.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, Sheriff Cox, so first of all, I'd like to applaud you guys on the concept behind, putting the form, the policy and the forms, in place. What occurred to me, I think is really good for trending and for analysis purposes to kind of create some trend lines over, the next several years and kind of see where you guys can kind of step in, and mitigate some issues. But the thought that occurred to me is that since we're kind of just establishing this policy and form and things of that nature, what measures are currently being used in the interim time to notice any, I would say, routine withdrawal? You mentioned, people being potentially coerced into withdrawing, and we don't really know that, and that's the purpose of trying to track it. Are there any measures that you guys currently have in place where you may notice that you're getting frequent from a certain person, and how are you guys responding to those types of things? that may be a loaded question, maybe you need to respond to it at another time, but that's just a thought that occurred to me, that while we're waiting to get a policy in place, what are we doing to kind of identify the frequent flyers, if you will, and reach out if it's necessary?
Yeah, I don't think we have a whole lot of that, but me as the sheriff, I wanted to broaden our complaint process to make it, one, easier for us to track, and two, easier for the citizen to either have options there as far as not making a formal complaint mediation or a supervisor sit down, pretty much. We don't have a whole lot of that. I was just speaking upon if somebody's making many complaints but withdrawing them, that's a flag that me as the sheriff needs to address and follow up on. And that's one reason why we have that in place. And me coming in on my first year, as you speak, Mr. Jones, about, I don't think that was really, there was no way to track it. There was no way of even tracking how many complaints we had that come in through the supervisors. And I don't think we tracked that as well. So me coming in, really, I read this at night, but some may call it weird, but you want to tighten your policy up as much as you can, because that's seen by anybody that searches our policy up on the website. And that's one reason that CALEA, they really go through it with a fine comb and tighten your policy up. And that's one of the reasons why I agree with Mr. Perrin, why we need to be accredited. And just going back to, I know it was a long, many questions in that one question, but there was really no way of tracking that, and this is me, the sheriff, tightening our policy up and making it easier for us and the citizen too as well.
And can I just add to that, the Mr. Jones, are you still there? The Blue Team software, the Blue Team software we use, it also has built-in warnings, a warning signal, right? So if we put in certain criteria to trigger the warning, say if a person gets 3 complaints in 6 months, it would trigger a message to the supervisors and the OPS personnel to say, hey, just a heads up, this person has had 3 complaints in 6 months, making sure you're aware of it. And it does the same thing with pursuits, with uses of force. It just sends that early warning to the supervisors.
And I guess as we
Appreciate you both. That was a loaded question, but just thought I'd ask if there was any sort of foundation other than just forward thinking that played into it, whether you guys are noticing a pattern of any sort of frequent flyers that were kind of coming in, things like that. But no, I really appreciate it. I think it's a great measure. I think it's a proactive way to keep our citizens abreast of what the processes are. And I like how you guys are looking at using it to basically be able to flag those ones that may need special attention. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Jones. That was a good question. It's kind of like a student in the classroom. It's either, a call home, or it's a talk to the teacher, or you go to the principal's office, kind of. So there's measures and steps in there put in place by me as the sheriff to actually, look after the welfare of my deputies too, and the welfare of every citizen that lives here. So I think it'll work out well. And, we're open to hear your recommendations from the board too as well.
Yeah, just a little more background, Mr. Jones. We saw a couple complaints come in, and once they're investigated, the flow chart, it goes to the ACC. So we saw a couple complaints that came in that did not end up at the ACC because actions were taken where someone withdrew it or something like that. So we wanted to make sure that we work together to make sure we close the loop on that. Because if someone complains, then they change their mind later, that at least we've recorded the fact that they've complained, and we can help you close the loop. And I'm assuming that if someone comes in to complain, that starts the process. We're not screening to put it in the bucket of.
Nope.
Okay.
Yep, so
That's right.
the policy's built to where if someone comes in, no matter what they decide here, or if they're undecided and they said they want to think about it, the policy's built where the supervisor enters it into the system.
Okay.
So one way or another, it's going to be entered. It's just a matter of, it may be a formal complaint, it may be a supervisor meet with the deputy. The OPS commander would follow up with them to get that.
Yeah, once the supervisor enters it, it's again seen by the commander of OPS. And if there's an issue, he comes, either the colonel, the major, or me, and then we address it too, so.
Okay, so internally, they sent us the policy and I skimmed it, but internally, all of these options are, they stay recorded in your blue
Yes,
software?
all of them do, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, it's called Blue Team, it's like a OPS software that tracks all of our stuff.
I just only remembered
I know.
blue, sorry.
Okay,
It's
that's
all
what that
exactly-
was.
time to-
Suzanne, you have a question?
So are you having the people fill this out by hand? Like,
They can come to the office, fill it out by hand, they can turn it in, they can come back tomorrow or whatever, a week from then, and turn it back in, and then we're working on getting that form on our website, which could be downloaded and then either emailed to us, or they can be dropped off at the office. It's hard to believe, a lot of people in our county still use US mail, so,
yeah,
I
I was just
just-
thinking,
yeah, they still drop stuff at the
Right.
post office. Stuff like that, there's
Yeah,
people that
yeah.
still do that.
right.
And there's nothing to say if someone comes in and wants to do a supervisor review that they don't change their mind later, right?
Right.
They have the ability to do that.
So that number one is, the 3 members here would be working with your folks too.
And
Now,
to me,
num-
as a sheriff, if I see that and it's brought to my attention and I feel that an investigation is needed, then we have that option too as well.
Right. The number 2, the audio or video record of the citizen complaints. Recommend a policy that ensures the audio or video recording of all citizen complaints filed. That's the recommendation. I've seen that in most of the investigation documents that come over. So that's what the board's recommending, if the board wants to recommend it. If we need a motion if you want to recommend that. Hearing none?
I have questions about it, but I
Okay.
don't know what they are exactly. Is the written the written complaint from somebody not enough? What if somebody doesn't want to
This-
do an audio or video recording?
This is actually linked to number 1, really, when you think about it. That if there's a complaint, and there's a discussion of that complaint with the OPS or some member, that discussion is recorded, because that's where the decision is normally made whether to treat it as feedback or go forward with it, right?
When it gets to that point in the investigation, there are video and audio recordings.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
When it
that's
gets
what
to,
we've seen in
when
the
you're
past.
talking to the investigator,
Yeah.
but I think she's
So
talking
is
about.
that already in the procedure, or that's something you guys do, but it's not documented
I think
as
with
procedure?
the policy is stating that if somebody comes to the office and wants to make that complaint, that initial contact, if all possible, it needs to be video or audio
Right.
recorded.
Okay, so we're adding in that initial
Yeah,
if it's in
it's
person,
done in most cases, but it's not done in all cases.
and it's not documented in the policy, is that what we're asking for?
I'll just
it
say,
to
like,
be?
not all the phones are recorded at the sheriff's office, right? So, somebody at the front desk took a call and it got transferred back to me, and I'm speaking to the complainant, this same example with the lady who withdrew her complaint. She spoke to me, I spoke to her for 10 minutes on the phone, it wasn't recorded, my line is not recorded, we're not gonna,
Right.
we can't record all lines in the sheriff's office, that's just not feasible, so what do we do with that one?
But who should be deciding whether the complaint go forward? Shouldn't that be someone on a recorded line, like the OPS people?
You could get that complaint on the side of the road, and that's gonna be documented by the supervisor.
Right?
Because a lot of times you'll get on a scene, which is hectic, and somebody's requesting that supervisor. That supervisor should have his body camera on and it's being recorded at that point.
So you got.
Me as a supervisor, I'd want that.
Yeah.
It helps us more than it
Right.
hurts us. We've seen it since we started, we were one of the first counties to have body worn cameras, so.
So if that, excuse me one
Sorry.
second, at that point, if you get a complaint, let's say on the side of the road, that's a complaint, right? You log that in as a complaint.
Correct.
So any further
And a lot of times,
interaction,
the supervisor, do you want me to talk to the deputy myself, or would you like to make a formal complaint?
right,
And that's one of the check boxes. Well, I just want you to talk to him.
right. So when you ask the question, do you wanna make it a formal complaint, is that done by someone on a recorded phone or not?
No, at that time, we would request them to either download our form, we would tell them about the PAB's form online, or
Right.
they can drop it off at the sheriff's office and fill it out, handwritten, complaint. A lot of times we see people, they'll bring it in and they'll type their complaint out and just staple it to it and send it to us.
Yeah, my,
So,
you got a question first,
Uh,
I'll cut you off.
My concern is if we're adding something else to make the process more complicated, I think people won't want to do it. So if they've already filled out this form and then you say, oh, well, we have to come record you, you know, if it's something that I observed happen, for instance, like it wasn't something that was deeply personal to me, I'm gonna be like, no, I don't have time for all this. Like, I wanted you to know about it, but how much time do I have to invest in that?
So when you fill the form out, that makes it a complaint.
Right, but then you're saying, okay, this written account that you've signed isn't enough, I need to come
No, no, no,
record
no,
that.
no. No,
That's
no.
my question.
If you fill the form out and give it to the sheriff's office, that's a complaint. In order for that complaint to be withdrawn, there has to be a contact with the complainant, right?
Okay,
So I'm saying for that piece, we should have it either audio or video recorded, because that's a complainant changing their mind in terms of the, complaint.
so that would be acceptable instead of the form?
It would be, that form is a sheriff's form. I'm just saying for the ACC to help, to close that case out, we receive the complaint, and if for some reason, the person decide they do not want to complain anymore, they now want to treat it as a feedback, if it's recorded when the person says that, then we know why.
Okay, this isn't clear on that. It says a policy that ensures audio or video recording of all citizen complaints filed.
yes, I think that was the confusing part for me.
I can see how,
That's
yeah, I can see how you
I'm
say
not,
that.
I don't know, I don't wanna move to do that exactly,
That's where we're gonna change some verbiage in there, like
Right.
if possible.
right?
So if a citizen doesn't wanna be recorded, I mean, it could be documented in there that citizen didn't wanna be recorded. That's possible too as well. So we're gonna change the verbiage in there, cause I had questions about that too as well. That's why it is the draft, and it's good to hear that feedback too, cause we're kinda on the same page as well. So if all possible, it will be, but if it gets to the point like Mr. Parent's talking about, to OPS, you wanna withdraw it, you're gonna have contact with somebody in Office of Professional
Right.
Standards.
Right, and I do think that should be recorded, or they should.
Which that's
fill
gonna
out
be
the form
documented on
either-
the
Either way.
the phone, or it's gonna be documented in the email, or
Yeah.
however they wanna send it to us, withdrawing
Right.
that complaint.
Yeah, because we definitely
Mhm.
need something
I
saying
close
why
the loop
we've
on it.
stopped
I would just be leery that if
investigating.
they have a documented signed form with description of why they're withdrawing, that wouldn't be valid without a recorded audio.
Well, it depends on how they reach that decision. That's the only thing I'm looking at. I came in, I gave you a complaint, and why did I change my mind? Did you convince me to change my mind, or did I change my mind because all I want to do is give feedback? Or did I change my mind because there's an administrative charging process, and you asked me the question, do I want to go through that? And now, as a citizen, my eyes would glaze over and say, what in the heck is that process that we're about to take me through? So I'm gonna withdraw
Right.
this and get out of here.
Yeah.
But is it, you know, I've changed my mind, or hey, since I filed this complaint, I've been pulled over 4 times?
Right. It could be,
You know, and they're not gonna say that either way, but that
And that's
would
why
be-
that cause we had questions about this, early fall.
Mhm.
And this is one of the reasons why I saw that, and that's just the way of fixing it,
yeah.
is that we're documenting why, and it's searchable. So I can go in there and see, you know, citizen, Mr. Smith,
Yeah.
made a complaint, but it was withdrawn. I mean, if I have a concern about that, I'll call Mr. Smith, or he has multiple, there's gotta be a reason, right? I mean,
Right.
Mr. Hawkins, you had a?
So this, just for clarification, so you're talking about the initial onset of a complaint and not doing the investigatory stage?
correct.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
How practical will that be to do a recording, video, if someone wants to decline to pursue a complaint?
It's not that, once they get to that point of declining,
Right.
the captain or OPS, somebody from the IA, Internal Affairs, will make contact with the citizen, and they will document that.
But in terms of video or camera? or
Most
what have
likely it'll be audio. But
Okay.
I've seen both.
Okay,
We do
It
get,
could be an audio, like audio or video recorded,
okay,
if possible.
yeah.
okay. I've signed my paper, I refuse the video.
That's documented.
Okay,
And them as a citizen, that's documented, they sign it, and I'm fine with that as the sheriff. If you do not want to be video recorded, that's fine. I mean,
okay.
if you wanna withdraw your complaint, that's fine too. I mean,
And if they fail to sign?
me as a
refuse
sheriff, I
to
don't
sign?
feel like our office is pressuring anybody
Right.
to withdraw complaints. I don't think
Right.
that's the problem at
Okay.
all. And I think putting this in place makes our system better.
Yeah.
But that's just, I think we talked about this round and
Yeah.
round, but
It
that's
just gives us a documented close of the thing.
correct.
And you have follow-up documentation if you need it. Any other questions or comments on that? Scott, I want to ask you to weigh in if you want to.
Okay.
You just weighed in, right? You gotta come up to the mic. Scott Deacon is the chair of the Administrative Charging Committee.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've seen it both ways. I've seen examples where a complainant comes in, and the person comes to the front door and they have the complaint on the body cam, straightforward. I've seen it where it comes to the complaint system of a hard copy either into the PAB through that system, or come to the sheriff, somebody fills out a form. That works. Where you have the opportunity to have a recording, either video or audio, or both, it protects the agency, and it protects the officer, and it protects the person. And whatever you can do to help that along, because I've seen people write things in the heat of a moment, and they're confused. I've seen evidence on the body cams that clearly their recollection is faulty, or sometimes the officer's recollection is not completely accurate. It goes with circumstance. It can be very emotional and the heat of the moment, and they think something and it's just not true. You have evidence that proves that, helps sort that out. So I'm a fan. However, if somebody doesn't want to do that and wishes to take the time to fill out the form, that's best evidence, and that's what I'm gonna go, that's what we have. So we try to protect everybody and make a reasonable decision based on the facts, and those are empirical observations collected electronically, and it makes your life a little easier, because if you can't, the way that stuff is set up, the technology, you can't refute it. Nobody can go in and change that. That's a fact. So that's kind of why we like to see it that way. Not to make it onerous, because we have a lot of these things in place. It's just a good practice if you can do it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
so would it be practical then to recommend that any complaints coming in through the phone only be handled on a recorded line? Is that something that could be
The thing we
implemented?
combat at the sheriff's office, and the major touched on a little bit, our building's 120 years old, and we have a lot of phone issues there. If anybody that calls there at the front desk they're automatically, so if you're transferred to somebody to a desk or office, that may not be recorded, but every call that comes in through that front desk is audio recorded.
Yeah.
So.
So ultimately, you're recording when they call in and say, I want to make a complaint.
Correct.
Yeah.
They've given their name and they want to make a complaint, so that's already
And
recorded.
if the supervisor's in there, they'd be transferred to the supervisor, which should go to a recorded line. Because once you hear the word complaint, me as a supervisor, that would always go to recorded line, ma'am, sir, what's your complaint? And they have these options now, and then that supervisor is trained to tell them that.
And this says just for all those things, we do it.
I'm
We're
sorry.
doing it like 95% of the time anyway.
You had great questions, because I had the same
Yeah.
questions you had when we were going over this, but like
Well-
Mr. Parent said, these are, drafts that we're working on, so.
You know, in another lifetime, I did actually file a complaint on a police officer, so I have, I have questions about, you know,
Did you withdraw it?
did what?
Did you withdraw it?
Honestly, back then, there was
Process,
nothing.
Yeah.
On my way to the state police barracks to give a complaint about a county officer, I was pulled over 3 times. I had to do a sobriety test on the side of the road, 6 months pregnant. It was fantastic. So I do have questions, like it does happen. Just, if it was a lot more involved than that, after the heat of the moment wears off and I'm not quite so angry and hormonal, I might not be interested in pursuing it when clearly somebody should know about it.
Yeah.
That's my
And that's fine.
concern.
All I'm saying is when you change your mind, that we know that because we
Right.
have a complaint out there.
I
So we
think,
can
I
close it.
agree, that's very important.
Yeah.
So perhaps we add when feasible.
But that was probably what we're gonna recommend, is when feasible, because sometimes it's just not feasible, and we don't wanna make it, ensure that it happens. every
Well, I
time,
think we
same time.
recommend this, and if they come back and say it's not feasible in all cases, I would prefer to see it that way. That they have looked at it and then they've decided that we can't do it 100% of the time.
Right.
I think there's a question, Mr. Jones?
Yeah, so, the question or comment is probably a little bit null and void now. Mr. Harkins actually brought up, the point of feasibility that I was about to make, and, primarily just changing the language, I think, would really actually cover it. And, I think Mr. Parent actually just used those words, whenever feasible or whenever practicable. Because my personal opinion is that I don't think that the audio or video really adds any veracity to the citizen withdrawing or filing their complaint, because they could easily kind of position themselves to say that they were coerced on either side, whether they're signing their signature on a piece of paper or sitting in front of the camera. So I don't think that there's any additional support there, but I do agree that the language definitely should be changed, so not all complaints, but whenever practicable, video and audio will be used, given the barriers to it, especially as Sheriff Cox just described, even right within the building, where not every single line is recorded, and the feasibility of being able to transfer that person to a recorded line or sit them in front of the camera may not always be possible. So, you guys have already hit all my points. Thank you for that.
Okay. So you have the recommendation down there. Do you want to act on it today, or?
I just don't like the word ensures.
Ensures. I don't have that.
Policy that ensures, that means that you're saying, I have to be audio or video. And maybe I don't wanna have video,
Right?
but I do want
Encourages?
to withdraw, but
Encourages?
I don't want a video.
So you get audio.
If they have it on the phone.
Right.
If they were recording it on the phone, then it would be
Yeah,
audio,
video
correct?
would be body cam. We know that all the officers don't have body cam, so, but we know that the phones in OPS, you can record.
Some of them.
In OPS should be all of them, right?
Correct, they are.
Oh,
Yeah.
all of them in a.
Right. So that's the group that's gonna do the investigation. That's the group that more than likely will ask the question, do you wanna treat this as a
So then it's
feedback?
automatically audio recorded,
Not
automatically.
necessarily.
A lot of times
Well,
OPS will do, if the phone line's not recorded, they'll say, this, ma'am, sir, this conversation is being recorded.
Right.
You agree to that? And if they don't have, they'll have their tape recorder on, and they'll record that conversation
Right.
with their digital,
So it is
recorder.
recorded, no
Right.
matter what.
Yeah, I mean, that's, that's the
Most
way,
cases right
internal
now.
affairs investigations have been conducted,
Yeah.
for the last 40 years.
Right.
But if you're at that point of doing the investigation with that internal affairs officer, you should be recorded.
Right.
And are those recordings automatically attached to that
Correct, to the case
file?
file.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. We just wanna make sure it's done in all cases.
But Sheriff,
okay.
just to clarify though, that automatic recording is during the actual investigation, not at the filing of the complaint. And here, the policy is specifically, or the recommendation is specifically talking about the filing of the complaint. Am I reading this incorrectly?
Yes, I mean, as the sheriff, they should be, if we're talking about feasible or whatever term you want to put in there, we would like to document as much evidence that we have at that point, and it should be if the citizen doesn't want it, then that's fine too. But we're trained. If you're in a contact with a citizen, that body camera's got to be on.
Yeah.
And it should be. I mean, that was put in law for a reason.
So number one on that slide, we're not discussing that because we're gonna get together after. Number two is the one we're discussing, the audio or video recording of the complaint, if there's a change in changing from a complaint to a feedback or anything like that, that is recorded. And that's normally done, but it's not done in all cases, so I don't think this is gonna be a difficult process for anybody, because you're doing it 99% of the time, or 95% of the time now, right?
When it's feasible.
Okay. Well, you tell me when you come back and tell me, we make this recommendation, you tell me whether it's, it's feasible or not. I don't wanna limit your scope of this.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear too. I mean, we didn't have to bring this to the board. I mean, this is
Right.
our policy.
Absolutely.
But I think it makes us better if you guys are put on this board for a reason.
Right.
I mean, you guys are citizens of the county. I think this gives me the best way of all around putting this together.
Yeah,
And we want to hear it from the
Yeah.
citizen
Yeah.
too, as well.
and if there's a complaint, we just need to make
Correct.
sure that, how was it disposed of? This board has never talked about mediation, so that's something that we also need to bring back probably in February to talk about how mediation fits into this process, because we try to keep it as a closed loop as possible. Complaint comes in, if it goes to mediation today, it doesn't go to the ACC. So there should be a way for us to make sure that it's closed.
As
That's-
long as the citizen's happy with the result.
Yes. Well, if they're not happy with the results, can it then get back and be investigated?
Correct.
I know you did
That's, it's
that.
been a recent change.
Yeah,
Okay,
you put that
got it.
That's in the policy.
in the policy.
Yeah.
It would come
Okay.
back.
Yeah.
It used to be if you agreed to mediation, that was binding.
That was
by
it, yeah.
result, but they've since changed that, so,
Good. So you're using the state template?
yes.
Okay. So do you want to take action on number 2? That is, recommend a policy that ensures the audio or video recording of all citizen complaints filed.
Can we maybe clarify it? Because I look at it, if I call in and make a complaint and it's not on a recorded line, so are we talking about the beginning or the middle or the end? That not all parts of that complaint may be recorded, but at some point it is recorded, it is documented.
Correct.
Yeah.
The complaint
You
is
get thousands of
recorded.
areas, right, so
Exactly.
somebody calls in the front desk, they wanna talk to the supervisor, he's not in the office. They call the supervisor, the front desk calls the supervisor, can you call this citizen back? They wanna speak to a supervisor, he calls them on a cell phone, it's not recorded.
Exactly. But then, if it continues, at some point, there is a documentation. There is a recording. They are either on a recorded line as it progresses, or they come in, or at some point of this complaint, there is an audio or video of,
If it's going to OPS, they will investigate, right?
Correct.
Someone calls, they complain, you assign a number to it. And when it's, at the time they call, right? So now it's a case waiting to be investigated. let's say OPS calls them back, so we got you, I've been signed a complaint, and we're gonna, let me get some clarification. So at that point, when they're talking to them, it's normally recorded, because we've.
And then it's assigned into Blue Team, our
Yes.
software,
Right.
which is tracked by OPS,
Right.
and they'll follow up on it.
So up to that point, it has not been determined whether to, I'm just want to give feedback. Okay? So at some point, the complainant will say, I don't want to go down this path, I just want to give feedback. All I'm saying is that, I'm recommending is that what led up to that decision, because it's beginning of the investigation, is recorded today.
But if the supervisor calls from their cell phone because they want to talk to him right away, you've all of a sudden lost that, so now a supervisor can't do that.
Well, if it's, is it a complaint at that point? Has a number been signed? I don't think so.
No, they can, at that point, it has been done by cell phone, and then they were gonna make, and they're gonna document that complaint
Right.
into the Blue Team system. And then once the citizen will now have contact with either that sergeant or the internal affairs investigator. And then that point, they can either withdraw it, supervisor, sit down, or the mediation portion of it.
But either way, that piece is recorded.
So this job, I mean, it's, as you can see in the field, emotions get high on things. Supervisor may miss something. I've been cursed out on the phone, sitting at the desk as the sergeant, and they wanna make a complaint on a deputy, and then the next day you make contact with them, they had no recollection of what they said. I mean, but me as the sheriff, I want to make this trackable, to where we can, follow up, give feedback, and make this system better.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. I'm just trying to determine, I'm seeing all these variables. At what point are you mandating audio and video? Because you're going to ensure all citizen complaints, audio or video, recorded. And that's not necessarily
I got
always
you.
feasible at the first get-go. Because the supervisor wants to get heads on this person who is complaining, find out what's going on, what the scenario is, what needs to be done.
And I think,
take
like
that
Mr. Perrin
action.
saying, like at the point where they actually fill out the form, that now it's a complaint. I mean, just like the lady I was just talking about on the phone, was it a complaint? She wanted to complain, but the process, to start the complaint process, like we explained to people, is you got to either go onto the board's site, or you have to make a complaint through us, either coming here, filling out the form, or you can, online, you can download the form too as well.
So it's not an official complaint until the form is filled out?
Correct.
Right.
I mean, that's the way I've seen it,
It's
Mr. Perrin, right?
standard. Even if the
Yeah.
form's not filled out, the supervisor, whoever takes the initial call is gonna enter something into the system, into the Blue Team. Whether
So
they-
if I call and say, I need to complain, car number 326 just cut me off for no good reason, I don't wanna go through this whole process, but whoever took that call is doing something with it
Right,
anyway.
they're entering the Blue Team, and they're
Okay.
doing their best effort at that point to categorize it, right?
Okay,
You may never fill out the form. You may say, no, I'm not filling out a form, but I want my complaint to be investigated, and we would do that also. I mean, can't force you to fill.
Well, see, that's
the form.
another
Now, when
form.
you get to the point where your complaint's being investigated, then they have to call you.
They have to call you.
So that's the contact where,
Right.
whatever goes on in that contact will be
Yeah.
recorded.
And see, like you were talking
Today
about right
it
there,
is.
that was never tracked in the past. So it means the sheriff, if what number did you give?
I don't,
Well,
326.
The 326 is
Yeah.
cutting people off. I mean, that's never tracked. I mean, now I can see that. And
Okay.
we identified a behavior of this deputy can't drive or needs training.
Well, just sometimes people are upset and wanna be heard, and
Correct.
that isn't.
And we get a lot of that. I mean, that's,
And that's part of
Right.
what prompted this,
Right.
having that extra category on there. Where we're not, it's not nothing, it's something, we're still being tracked, but it's not a complaint, because they don't want a complaint.
So the point of your recommendation is once it is an actual complaint, you'd like
Then we need
the
to,
investigation audio or video recorded.
yeah, we need to know what happened to it if it does not go all the way through the system. Okay, if,
Right?
if you call and complain and they said, oh, okay, do you wanna go to mediation? Okay, and you said, yeah, I'll go to mediation. That piece is recorded. Now ACC knows why they didn't get that complaint, but it's in the system as a complaint that we gotta close out at some point.
Okay.
So you're not making them fill this sheet out for every complaint?
We would like them to.
I mean, like,
We
if
can't make
I-
them do anything.
I think we're talking two,
Yeah.
we're talking 1 and 2. 1 was off the table
Okay.
right now. We're not going to take any action on 1 tonight. That's where we're gonna get together and hopefully
That's why I'm getting
give you
gray
some
hair.
good input on enhancing the wording of that. 2 is what we're talking about, whether this board wants to recommend that a policy, that the sheriff's office consider a policy that ensures that audio or video recording of all citizen complaint that are filed. And in order to get to that point,
Yeah.
in order to get to that point, it has to be assigned to somebody in OPS, I'm assuming, right?
Or they can delegate it to a supervisor or
Yeah,
another
and that
commander.
person would call the complainant, and ones I've seen so far says, you're being recorded, and it goes from there.
Perfect example too, we just had it this year, which kind of dictated the way we changed the policy of our the way we respond to calls. Lights and sirens was the bus driver in distress call, which didn't deem a priority 1 response. But the deputy had to get there quickly, cuts a lady off. She complains, but then finds out where the deputy was gone to. Her kid was on the bus, that the bus driver needed help, and now she doesn't want to make a complaint.
That changes
But
your
then, yeah,
perspective.
then that
Yeah.
kind of changes her mind on, the deputy had to get there. I mean, and that's what kind of prompted us to change kind of
Yeah.
our response policy too as well.
Okay.
Now, that one, at the time, went all the way through to the ACC.
Correct.
Now it would not, unless we have something to ensure that we close that complaint out.
And we're hardening this by the documentation, and it's searchable and trackable for
Right.
me to look at that. And if Mr. Parent or Mr. Deacon has an issue, we can pull that up and we can discuss it too as well.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I agree that it is a good policy to have it recorded as much as possible. I'm just not sure the wording of it to make a recommendation.
Well, I think what would come back would be, you tell us whether it's feasible or not.
We'd have to sit
And-
down
and
with
define
them
the
and figure it out
process.
also.
Scott, I'm gonna take your comment, then I'm gonna call for a vote.
My only comment was listening to what was said. And if you put the caveat in front of the audio or video recording, once, or the initial contact with the complainant after a case number has been assigned, to the extent possible, will be video or audio recorded. Because that's exactly what gets it down to very specific.
Okay, so after a case number has been assigned.
I don't know how accurate that is, but that's just kind of what I heard.
I think that's something you guys can tell us.
We'll have to sit down.
Yeah,
with
we've
them.
gotta sit down. We're
Yeah.
not gonna solve
We're
this
not gonna solve
tonight.
this tonight.
This is just a recommendation like we've done in the past, so pretty broad. And you come back and tell us how this fits in with what we do. And then it directly affects the ACC. And we're just the torchbearer here with the PAB to look at policies and procedures. So but the main thing is, in the ACC meetings, this is where this kind of question comes up.
Right.
Okay, so if you want to make a motion, if not, we're gonna move on. So is there a motion to recommend number 2? Hearing none, we're moving on. Any other comments?
No, sir, I think we covered it.
I appreciate it, appreciate our working relationship, and we get a lot of stuff done.
Absolutely, I appreciate that.
Okay. The PAB meeting schedule. So I think Suzanne, with the question you had earlier, if you can join us by Zoom, that should be okay. Right?
Yeah, I guess, 'cause
Yeah.
somebody did tonight.
We got your question answered.
Yep.
So these are the dates for next year for the board. Notice that the December 4th one, 'cause I don't think anyone wants to meet the week of Thanksgiving. If you do, we can change that, though.
We need to be
The
making
vice
pies
president
that
will be
day.
here if we do that. Okay, so we at the point for any comments from the board before we get into public comment? On anything, anyone wants to discuss anything? Okay, then we have, we had public comment. Do we have anyone on for public comment?
We do have one member of the public online. If you would like to speak for public comment, please use the raise your hand function. And she has not raised her hand.
Okay, then there's no reason to read all this stuff. No one's gonna speak. All right, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Real quick, Mr. President, real quick before you guys leave.
Yep.
I just want to say thank you for this year. It's been a long year for us, and you guys have made it, very professional. Your leadership is, we appreciate that. And two, as well, we are living in tough times these days, and
Yeah.
the deputies have a hard task in front of them to keep our county safe, which, you guys hold the keys to that, and I appreciate that. And you coming out in front of the FOP and giving them some insight on what you guys do and the job that you do, I think that speaks volumes. I don't think that any board has spoke to an FOP if I'm familiar with throughout the state. I just want to say thank you. And me as the sheriff, moving on to the next year, we're gonna have 3 districts inside the county, breaking it down to 1, 2, 3, and 4 being the beaches. One will have a sheriff's office up in the Dunkirk area to better serve the citizens and keeping our deputies in our patrol areas and improving response times. The 2 station will be the main station there in Prince Frederick, and our 3rd district will be in Lusby, that the citizens can come. My idea as the sheriff is to have community meetings if they want to speak to me or anybody. They have somebody area to facilitate that. If a citizen doesn't have to drive to Prince Frederick that lives in Lusby to do child exchanges, but that's my vision of moving the sheriff's office forward. And I think it'll do good for not only our sheriff's office, but the citizens of Calvert County. So I just want to put that in you guys' mind of what my plan is and what we have moving forward. So, and we have accomplished a lot in 1 year, and I'm proud of my staff and you guys too as well. So, because I think that we set the bar as far as this goes, and I look forward into working with you guys into the next 20 years, hopefully. So.
I appreciate your comments, first of all, and I thank you and all of your team for your service to Calvert County. It shows in every interaction that I've had with them. Also, it's been a good year. We work well together. The MOU was a process, I think was a learning process for all of us, but we were able to sit down and get a document that we could live with and we can execute, and go back and change if we needed to. So I want to thank you and also thank the members of this board for representing Calvert County for the last year and a half. Wow, time flies. And if everyone, hope you have a wonderful holiday.
You too.
And our next meeting is on February 28th. So on that note, if no other comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. You gotta give me a motion to adjourn now.
Second.
Second, okay. Stand adjourned.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.